what I understand, you said that the sanctuary was not always in existence. Then where is God's throne? I thought that his throne was always in the sanctuary.
Now, that's a very good question. I'll tell you, this is one of the things which Desmond Ford causes the church officials to scratch their heads over. Because, as far as the church is concerned, they feel that the throne of God has always been in existence in the sanctuary because they think the sanctuary has always been in existence. So, here is what Desmond Ford trips them up with. He said, okay, if that is what you believe, in 1844 then, in 1844, you are telling me that Christ went into the most holy place for the first time. And they say yes. So he said, well then, if that is so then, when Christ ascended into heaven in AD 31, well then, there is where he went. So how come now you are telling me that is now in 1844 he is moving into the most holy place? You can't answer that. See? They can't answer that. However, you will notice that in the book of Ezekiel, now let's just turn to Ezekiel, the book of Ezekiel there, you will observe that in the book of Ezekiel, Ezekiel had a vision, and in that vision, I will not read the whole thing, you can read it in your spare time, but in that vision, Ezekiel saw a throne. He saw a throne with one sitting upon that throne, coming to earth. And that throne was transported by 4 cherubims. You can read it in chapter 1, but I will just read the last part of that chapter. I'll read from verse 24, and it says, and when they, that is, the cherubims, and when they went, I heard the noise of their wings, like the noise of great waters, as the voice of the Almighty, and the voice of speech, as the noise of an host. When they stood, they let down their wings, and there was a voice from the firmament that was over their heads, and they stood, and had let down their wings. And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone, and upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above it. And I saw as the color of amber, as the appearance of fire round about within it, from the appearance of his loins even upward, and from the appearance of his loins even downward, I saw, as it were, the appearance of fire, and it had brightness round about, as the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell on my face, and I heard the voice of one that spake. Now this was Christ, one like the Son of Man, or one like the appearance of a man, who came. This is a vision of Christ coming on a mobile throne. This is a moving throne. And this is a throne that is carried by cherubims who had 4 wings. So now let's note that. That's number 1. Let us look at an example now of another throne, another mobile throne in Isaiah chapter 6. Let us turn to Isaiah chapter 6, and you will see there another type of throne. God has many thrones, not one. He has mobile thrones, he has stationary thrones or fixed thrones. We just read in Ezekiel there where he came transported on a mobile throne by 4 cherubims. But in Isaiah chapter 6, you will see another mobile throne, but this time he is transported by seraphims who have 6 wings. And instead of the throne being above the seraphims as how the throne was above the cherubims, this time you will see the throne was below seraphims who have 6 wings. So we go on in chapter 6. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphim. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. That's the seraphim. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of the people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Now, here we see another mobile throne, because as he moved, the Bible tells us that the train, his train, or the retinue, you will find that in the margin, the retinue filled the temple. So this is another mobile throne. This time it's being carried by seraphim who have 6 wings. However, those are 2 mobile thrones. But now let us look at some stationary thrones, thrones which are fixed. In the book of Revelation chapter 4, you will see there, Revelation chapter 4, you will see there, after this, verse 1, I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking with me, which said, Come up hither, and I will shew thee things which must be hereafter. And immediately I was in the spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and as a sardine stone, and there was a rainbow round about the throne, and in sight like unto emerald. And round about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment, and they had on their heads crowns of gold. And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices, and there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. And before the throne there was a sea of glass, like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne and round about the throne were 4 beasts, full of eyes before and behind. Now, this is in the sanctuary in heaven, because it says a door was opened in heaven. And now we know, according to our study of the scriptures, that this door that was opened in heaven was the door to the most holy place in the heavenly sanctuary. And this incident that we are reading here in Revelation chapter 4 took place in 1844, when Christ moved into the most holy place, and he stood before the Father, who moved from his administrative throne, which is in paradise. We will read that in a short while. He moved from another fixed location in paradise into the sanctuary, which is in heaven. So now we have 2 mobile thrones, one in Ezekiel chapter 1, number 2 in Isaiah chapter 6, and now we find here a stationary throne, a throne that was built, or a throne that was set up, a throne that was put there in the sanctuary at a specific time. That was in 1844. The throne was not there at the time that John had the vision. John saw in vision the time when this throne will be placed there. But let us see the time now when God moved from the throne which is in paradise. So let us read that in Revelation chapter 22. There is another fixed throne. Notice the throne in the sanctuary has before it the sea of glass. However, this particular throne that we're going to read about now, in Revelation chapter 22, it says, verse 1, And he shewed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. So now this is, and in the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, was there the tree of life. The tree of life is not in the sanctuary. The tree of life is in paradise. See? Now that is where God's eternal throne has always been, even before the sanctuary came into existence. So your question as to whether God's throne has always been in the sanctuary, or you said you thought that God's throne has always been in the sanctuary, God's throne has not always been in the sanctuary. God's throne has always been in paradise, where the tree of life, the river of the water of life is. That's in paradise. So in the Bible, 4 thrones are brought to view. 2 mobile or moving, and 2 stationary. One is in the sanctuary, in a fixed location in the sanctuary, and the other one is administrative throne, is in paradise. The one in the sanctuary is the judicial throne, the throne of judgment. But the one in paradise, where the throne of God and the Lamb is, that is administrative throne. In Daniel chapter 7, brings to view the time in which the throne in the sanctuary was set up. Daniel, looking down the ages in vision, saw, just as how John saw in AD 96, John saw the time when the throne was actually set up. But Daniel in vision is telling us in chapter 7 and verse 10, when the preparations were being made to place that throne, or to set up that throne in the sanctuary for the judgment. And this is what he says in Daniel chapter 7. He says there in verse 10, he says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as a burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. Now this was God setting up his throne. This was God moving from his administrative throne in paradise into the sanctuary. Now Ellen White, in commenting on this movement of God from one throne to another, from one fixed throne to another, even tells you how this transportation took place. You find it in early writings, page 55. Let me just read that for you. It says there on page 55 of early writings, I will read a little higher up. It says, I saw the Father rise from the throne, and in a flaming chariot go into the Holy of Holies within the veil and sit down. Then Jesus rose up from the throne, and the most of those who were bowed down arose with him. I did not see one ray of light pass from Jesus to the ceaseless multitude after he arose, and they were left in perfect darkness. A little further down, she says, then he raised his right arm, and we heard his lovely voice saying, wait here, I'm going to my Father to receive the kingdom. Keep your garments spotless. In a little while I will return from the wedding and receive you to myself. Then a cloudy chariot with wheels like flaming fire, surrounded by angels, came to where Jesus was. He stepped into the chariot and was borne to the holiest where the Father sat. So here we see that God rose up from a throne. He stepped into a chariot, and he went into the holiest of all. Then Jesus also rose up from where he was. He too stepped into a flaming chariot, and he was brought to where the Father sat. So now tell me, which throne then was God sitting on, that he had to move from that throne and go into the most holies of all? There we have it. The throne that he moved from was the throne that is brought to view in Revelation chapter 22 And verse 1, that is the throne in paradise. That's his administrative throne. That is the throne from which he rules the sinless world. That is the throne at which Christ, when he ascended up into heaven in AD 31, that is the throne in which Stephen, when he was stoned, let us just read that in Acts chapter 7. It says there, Stephen, when he was stoned, he said he saw the heavens open. And in Acts chapter 7 and verse 54 down to 56, it says, when they heard these things, they were cut to the heart, and they gnashed on him, that is on Stephen, with their teeth. But he, being full of the Holy Ghost, looked up steadfastly into heaven, and saw the glory of God, and Jesus standing on the right hand of God. Now what is that? In the sanctuary, the Lamb is seen standing before the Father. But here we see Stephen in AD 34. Stephen saw Jesus standing on the right hand of God, and behold, and said, behold, I see heavens opened, and the Son of Man standing on the right hand of God. Now, this was Jesus when he went up into heaven in AD 31. Although he sat on the right hand of the Father on his administrative throne, that is the throne of God and the Lamb, from the administrative throne, he moved back and forth to the first apartment of the heavenly sanctuary. Now bear in mind that Jesus is not confined to one particular spot. When he ascended up into heaven, the Bible tells us, he sat down at the right hand of the Father. See, he did not sit down in the most holy place. He did not go into the most holy place. He sat at the right hand of the Father, and there he was now a priest and a king. He was the king of the sinless universe, and he was a priest. He began his priestly ministry in the first apartment of the heavenly sanctuary. So he moved back and forth. He sat on the Father's right hand on the administrative throne in paradise, and he performed his priestly work in the first apartment of the sanctuary. Until the time came in AD 1844, when both he and the Father moved from the administrative throne, and they were carried into the most holy place. And there he is right now, performing the work of final atonement in behalf of mankind. There he is right now, finishing or cleansing, doing the work of cleansing the sanctuary, which began with the judgment of the dead. And soon, very soon, that work of cleansing the sanctuary will be transferred to the living on earth. And this is what we are interested in. So I hope that answers your question. Next question, please.
When Christ ascended into heaven, did he not go into the sanctuary?
Follow us to hear the answer to this and many more questions concerning the sanctuary service.
Follow our studies at Solemn Thought Ministries on YouTube to learn more.